today. He's one of the individuals that not only has provided first-class equipment on the racetrack, but he's always provided first-class looking race cars. Looks and speed are what the Art Berry team is all about. And some of the best-named drivers in the country have sat behind the wheel of Art Berry's race cars. Names like Bobby Santo, Greg Sachs, Jeff Fuller, George Summers, and even the man that sits behind the wheel right now is one of the legends in this business. That, of course, being George Kent. Well, for this team, besides building race cars for other competitors, they build their own. And there's quite a story that revolves around the car that I'm standing next to. It is a car that they worked on right to the last minutes of the working day to get it ready for Martinsville. It was one of the last cars to move into the pit area at Martinsville. But by the time the time trials were over, this automobile was the fastest car in the house. First time out on the pavement, first time for George Kent to sit behind the wheel of it, and first time for Art Berry to perform even more magic again at the Martinsville Speedway. Well, Art Berry performs that magic right here from Preston, Connecticut. Art, thanks for having us here first off at your shop. It's a real pleasure to come here. You've been involved in this business an awful lot of years, and you've seen an awful lot of changes over those years. But what you did at the Martinsville Speedway, that's a special story all by itself. I mean, you arrived late. Tell us about why you arrived late first. That's a good story to begin with.
Well, we arrived late because we didn't, we work a lot for other people, and getting this thing painted and to the quality of work that we like to do, we were right down to the wire. I had to run some of these parts up to my son-in-law's place because he's got a booth that's got a heater in it, or a bacon oven, and it wasn't until that morning that we got this done painted at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Art, is it a problem having your own race car in the shop, and many times having to move your race car to the back and cover it up and work on customers' cars?
It's very tough to have your own race car sitting in the shop because you can't work on it as much as you'd like to. In this shop, I've got a race car here, and I do not hide it from the public. Somebody wants to look at it, they're welcome to look at it. The only thing I don't do is let them go after it with a tape measure because they're competition. But if we fabricate something and we think it's going to work good, we want our competitors to run well. It has hurt me as far as trying to get my cars ready in time to race.
During the off-season, one of the big rule changes that NASCAR came up with was the Nerf bar situation. Now, at first, a lot of people thought that NASCAR was just going to kind of take a shot with it and then back down. But they didn't back down at all, and the new Nerf bars were really quite complicated.
Yeah, they became more complicated because I don't think NASCAR themselves knew what they wanted. So I had to come up with a design of a Nerf bar and fax pictures down to Daytona, and they didn't like it, and they'd call you back and tell you had to change this and change that. And we worked for like 3 weeks fabricating a Nerf bar, and by the time we bought all the equipment, we had some serious money tied up in trying to get these bars perfected. And my main concern was to put something on a car that the local fellow could just bolt his original brackets and get out of it as cheap as he could, but this wasn't the case.
Let's take the hood off and take a look at that new steering and the new front end.
Okay.
This is something kind of different. Most of the modifieds today have what we refer to as the Pinto or Mustang 2 type of rack and pinion steering. But Art, this is a whole different setup. Explain in general what the Sweet manufacturing front steering is all about.
Well, it's a very simple but strong rack and pinion system. It has a power assist that's mounted on top. It's not like the Pinto where it's a single unit. We've designed this front end where it's got equal A-frames on it, and the bump steer can be adjusted very easy. What we like about it is if you do happen to rub wheels or you happen to bang against the wall or something, 9 times out of 10 you get away from it. You don't have to put a rack in it because it doesn't break that easy.
You know, visually, as you look at a Mustang 2 type of steering, it appears to be a lot bigger than this. It bolts on with bigger type rubber grommet type mounting and so forth. This seems much smaller. Is there a weight factor involved?
When it's all said and done, I think the weight factor comes out about the same as it would be with the Pinto when it's all done. Because you have a power assist unit up in here, and you have a small one down in here. So when it's all together, the weight is probably a little bit lighter, but not much.
Years ago, when rack and pinion steering first came about in modified racing, the first type of steering was the Peugeot type. Used to break everybody's thumb off, was the old saying, and so forth. Then they found the Mustang 2 combination, or the Pinto rack and pinion type thing. That's really been around for quite some time. What made you go to this? Do you honestly feel that that system has just been around too long?
Well, it's been around a long time, and you know the driver, George Kent here, he's used this sweep system quite a bit in his type of racing, and George, of course, has broken a few wrists with it himself, but it definitely, we feel it has an advantage. And this new design, it definitely has an advantage over the old type.
You know, one of the things that I notice on this new system is the fact that the actual tie rod ends, or the strut ends of it, that are used, they are actually the same struts that are used to hold the lower A-frame, or they appear to be the same type. With the Mustang 2 type, that's not the case.
No, it's not. The Mustang 2 has its own tire rod, an inner and an outer. This makes it a little easier for us to carry just one spare, and we can use it either for strut rods or tire rods.
We also should point out that in my back pocket here, I've got another part of this, and it's what you referred to before as the power assist part of this. This was one of the factors involved in Martinsville that was a little costly to Art Berry and his crew. Now, we have to mention also that this is an experimental type concept. It doesn't mean that the system failed. It's just one of those things that did occur. What happened?
Well, you know, it's probably the only piece that we put in this car and used an old bolt. And we were on the second lap in the feature race, and the bolt broke, which dropped off, and we had no more power steering.
I see.
So George, you know, he let it for 75 laps, but fatigue, and he just couldn't take that anymore.
You know, it seems to be a very strong system. There was also some other changes in the front end of these race cars that are being made, not necessarily for this year, but for the following year. Let's go a little further back and talk about the construction of some of the bars and the hoops in the car. I mean, previously, the bars on a Troyer car came down and directly came to the angle here. Now, all of a sudden, they've got a little loop in them. What's that all about?
Well, we put the loop in there hoping that it'll have a crush factor. We have light tubing up in the front of the car, and it's a little stronger as it goes down the rails, which eventually I think they'll put the lighter tubing all the way down.
I see.
And hoping this will give a crush factor if the driver should hit the wall with it.
This is a state-of-the-art 1991 car with all of the bells and whistles that make the magic and everything else. What is the difference between this car and the previous year's model?
Well, this one's got the new front clip-on that NASCAR is going to want in 1992. We've already put it on this car. And the steering, we hope, will be what people will want in 92.
Right.
As soon as we can get it fully perfected. The rest of the car, you know, it's got all the new safety stuff that NASCAR wants on them.
Incidentally, we also should point out at this time that there's no roof on this automobile. And there's a reason for it. At the Martinsville Speedway, when Art Berry brought out this beautiful new race car that turned in the fastest time and perhaps almost won the event, there was a little bit of problem going through inspection. That's why the roof isn't on the car. Where's the roof, Art?
Well, I got to Martinsville, and NASCAR didn't like the roof because I filled in the little windshield groove.
Which is actually a rain gutter for somebody who's watching who's not very familiar with it.
I think in a modified race car that you should be able to be creative. And I tried something, apparently NASCAR didn't like it.
So what did they tell you to do?
They told me to take it out down there, and I wasn't about to do that. I told them I would take it out when I got home, and they agreed to let me do that. So that's why the roof isn't here. We're taking it back off and redesigning it.
So it just goes to show you, if you think running a modified or running any race car in NASCAR is that easy, well, it's not, because just when you're looking for what they call the racer's edge, somebody comes along and says, well, you can't do that even at all. But Art Berry's race car is a real showpiece from every aspect that you look. The back end of the car, anything different there, or is it basically the same combination?
No, we've changed the back, too. We've changed all the inside sheet metal on this car to actually use it on the super speedway, and we've got some pretty good spoiler action in the back of it. That's different on this car than most of your 91s will be.
Let's go back to the Nerf bars for one more final talk or one more look at them. You've raced one race with them. You've seen what they do. Do you honestly, now Art Berry, the man who has the fabrication shop, who's built more of these Nerf bars than anybody else today, no question about it, do you really feel that these Nerf bars are the way to go?
At this point, I haven't seen Ben where they've done anything for us yet. Now, if they save one life, then I guess they've done their job. But right at this point, I haven't seen anything yet that's proven that.
Another edition of Race Week comes to a close. We hope you've enjoyed a look at Richmond International Raceway and Super Speedway modified competition at its best. You know, it's been a real pleasure to come to Preston, Connecticut and talk with Art Berry and take a look at Spearpoint Auto and Fabrication. He is truly one of the nice guys in this very tough and complicated business. We wish him and his crew the best of luck during the 1991 season. Well, that's going to kind of close things for this edition of Race Week. Next week, we'll bring you more great racing action as Riverside Park Speedway will open up its 1991 season. Besides that, we'll bring you more looks and stories from behind the scenes in motorsports right here in the Northeast. Until then, we say take care, and we'll see you again next time for the best in racing, only right here with us on Race Week. Bye-bye now.